Okay, so I get Andy here tonight with me, and I'm gonna interview him on his business and on his business progress. He's the founder and owner of Plan Deluxe, and he's gonna talk about a few things on how he started his business, how he turned around his life, created more freedom for himself, and built the business to a very, very interesting level where he helps a lot of people and transforms a lot of lives. So I'm very excited to have you here, Andy, tonight with me. It's actually morning for you, right?
It's very early in the morning. It's 8 in the morning. So good
Okay,
morning.
good. Good
Thanks.
morning. Fantastic. So tell us a little bit about yourself and where you come from in terms of your business, in terms of your career.
Well, I'm calling this morning from Portland, Oregon. It's not sunny because it's not early. It's too early for that. Um, I've lived all over the world, which is pretty exciting. Um, Amsterdam, Edinburgh, Seattle, Portland, which makes for I think well-rounded view on the life and business. Career-wise, I started off in technology. So I was an IT guy. I managed databases when I was in college, which doesn't sound very exciting, and it's not. And but it paid really well, and um, for a college student, that's a great thing, to have cash flow. And then I moved to Amsterdam, and I was working for PeopleSoft, which is a company that has software that big companies run. So if you have, 100,000 employees and need to pay them every Friday, this is the kind of thing that you buy. And I was a process specialist, and I was known as the guy who put all the pieces together. So I knew how, with these big, ginormous projects, I would know how to figure out how to put everything together. Or if a client um, would purchase our product and really needed to use it in a specific way, I would always know, like, I would just know, like, what to do, like, how to do it that way. So I became really successful at doing that. And then um, PeopleSoft was bought out by another company, and that I didn't like so well. I wasn't too excited about that. So my client hired me. So I became a European banking officer. And that was fine because I did the same job, still having a lot of fun. I managed this team of people, and they were all from different countries, all over the world, and so we would celebrate everyone's national holiday. I always tell that story because it was so fun. It was just like we always had so much fun. And then a European banking crisis happened, and I lost my job again. So, or my job changed again without my permission. And that's when I moved to Edinburgh to a different company. And I didn't like that particular company. I didn't really like the working environment. The work I was doing was not exactly what I thought I would be doing, and it just kind of snowballed to the point where I was really feeling the stress, feeling a lot of health issues because I was so unhappy with my work environment. And thankfully, one day I had a project manager who came up to me and said, this job is really going to kill you. It's just not good for you. You need to leave. And I kind of nodded my head and I thought, well, he's really right, but I didn't know what I would do. And I remembered when I was a kid, I would sit around the table and I would cut up pieces of paper and staple them together and make little magazines. So I thought, well, I'm destined to be in publishing, but I don't know what that means, but I'll figure it out. So I made the jump, which I don't say lightly. It's not like, hey, I'm going to go out on my own now. It was definitely a process of, you know, inward reflection and being really okay with the risk of not having, that security. But, I was so unhappy. It just seemed like I was the one in the risky position, with the job that made me feel bad. Um, and that was almost 8 years ago when I did
Hmm.
that. And it's been quite a journey even since to figure out, what's my purpose in life and what value do I have to offer people? What, those skills I was talking about, like fitting the pieces together. How does that play into, being a business owner? So that's kind of how I got to being self-employed in a nutshell. like 15 years and 4 minutes.
Okay, so what's the first thing that you did when you started your own business or became self-employed? What's the first thing that you did there?
Well, I was living in Edinburgh at the time, Edinburgh, Scotland, and there weren't any very many entrepreneurs. Just weren't a lot of people doing that kind of thing back then. But there was a big group of them. They clustered together, and so they every Friday morning there was the Edinburgh coffee morning at like 8 in the morning. And I'm not a morning person, so this is pretty exciting to be on the call with you this early. But I would go to, but I would go to this coffee thing, and because it was so early, it was kind of like really good people. You know, it was really like a good group of people, and I got the best advice. I got like really good advice. I was telling people about my dream to have a magazine, and they said, "Well, maybe you should start it online first." And then I went the next week, and I sat next to this person who said, "Oh, I want to introduce you to this the nice woman. She heard about what you do. I think she could use your help." And what I found is just by surrounding myself with good people, like people who wanted me to succeed in that startup phase, it was really crucial because they kind of gave me a good direction. I still had to figure a lot of things out myself, but what ended up happening is that woman hired me, so I had like a client on the side for quite a long time that kind of made sure I could pay the rent. You know, that was really helpful. Um, I think in hindsight, maybe I did clients for too long before I really got into Plum Deluxe and the work that we're doing there. But I think the critical piece there was finding like-minded people. And I
Yeah,
think if you're going to do anything in business or if you're going to do any business, you're going to have challenges, right? And you need to have those like-minded people who will support you, who will tell you what you really need to hear, and also the things that you really need to know. So sometimes, you know, it's like, oh, Daniel, that's really not a good idea, and here's why I think so. Or like, Daniel, I know you're having a hard time, and you're going to be okay. And you know, can I buy you a coffee? And I'll bring
yeah,
it to your office because I know you're really busy. So
yeah.
that was so crucial, and it's still today having people that work for you that really care and having people around you who can just
Yeah.
support you because you know entrepreneurship is not like for the faint of heart. So
Yeah, so one of the questions that I have is with that woman, the client, what kind of work did you do with her?
well, it's really interesting. Back then Facebook pages and social media kind of stuff was really new, and I was big on Twitter. I don't know how I kind of just stumbled into that, but people knew me for that. And she knew that I had this like high like tech experience. So she was a tourism person, and that's the big economy there. And she said, "Well, I kind of see that you have all these skill sets. Then you need somebody who knows technology and content. You know, I did have a blog by then. I'd had it for a bit, not like what you see today. It was very generic and not very exciting. You know, you can feel free to try to find me in the internet archives, but I'm not going to give you the URL." And and so she saw that I had like I'd worked with content before, I knew websites and technology, and I knew the social media. So they hired me to do like these tourism marketing projects. So I would help them figure out how they would best represent their tourism projects on the internet, and then tie in the social media piece. And you know, sometimes it would be they needed coaching on a Facebook page because they didn't even know what that was, and I was like, well, I don't really know what it is either, but we can figure it out together. And then other times it was, well, we really need to make this website and we need somebody who can tell us what we need to ask for, which is exactly what I used to do in my job, would be listen to a client, figure out what they want, and then write it down in a way that the programmers can deliver it. You know, so that's kind of that translator. So that's what
Hmm.
she hired me for was to do that in tourism. So I actually ended up being pretty well known in tourism. I'm still known in tourism just because I worked for so many years in Scotland doing all those little projects.
Okay, okay. So one of the things that you mentioned was that that you told me before the interview is that when you actually started your business, you actually didn't create a business, you created a job for yourself. Tell me a bit more about that.
Well, that was the funny thing is this money is addictive in that way. So she hired me, and then other people found out about what I was doing, and I was doing a lot of training classes for them. So I would say you run little tours, right? And I was doing like you know Swiss tourism, and you have tours in some weird part of Switzerland. So you come to one of my workshops to learn about what I knew about how you in this small part of the world could market your tours, and how do you work with, it teach you how to partner with hotels and restaurants, and create experiences that, would kind of surprise them with everything they need. So that's what I would teach. It was pretty good too. And so you as a student would afterwards email me and say like, well, do you know anybody that knows a website, or do you know anyone that does, print design, or all these things? And so I just said yes because it was, they asked me and I could do it. And I had a friend who still works for me who was really good at web design, so we kind of partnered and we started doing all these websites. And sooner or later, it was like I didn't have any time to do the fun stuff, blogging, and like what's the kind of big dream for this blog, and um, you know enjoy being an entrepreneur. I can take
Hmm.
off, in the middle of the day and go on a hike. I was too busy with all these clients. And the funny thing was, some of the clients were terrible. I had terrible clients because I felt obligated that because they were a student in my class, I had to take them as a client. So I ended up with clients who didn't pay, or who really like fought me on how much I charge. And okay, if you want to help someone and they can't afford it, that's different. If you have a set price and people telling you you're charging too much, well, maybe you are, or maybe they're just not the right client for you. So I just assumed, nobody told me that maybe I needed to stick up for myself. And I was too ashamed to ask this. I just said I had this great group of people who were helping me, and I was too ashamed to say like, "Hey, I'm being bullied by my client." Like, nobody wants to admit that. So that quickly turned into a job, and I was the manager, and I was a terrible boss, which is what I just left, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Okay. So that's really interesting. There, I wanted to go into those details because that's what I see a lot of new business owners, or even business owners that I work with who have been in business for 30 years, have created for themselves. It's basically another job. Now they are their own boss, but at the same time they work maybe with one or two clients, and they have no freedom. They work in an office at the client side again. So they just created another job. So tell me about how you made that transition out of your self-employed job into becoming an entrepreneur and actually building a business and not a practice and not a job.
all right, it's not easy. It's not easy. But I think the key and the thing I sat down to do is I wrote down what I really wanted. I'd never did that before. I'd kind of visioned out like my perfect day, and I don't think that was very realistic. People tell you that vision out your perfect day, but I hadn't been self-employed before, so I didn't really know. I kind of had this idea that it was a lot easier than it is, but I didn't know, and so I that just didn't work for me. So now that I had this experience under my belt, I sat down. I wrote down like what did I really want, how much money did I really need to make and want to make. Those are two different numbers. Like, what do you need to pay the bills? What do you want to be really happy? Do I want to work at home? Should I move to an office? Do I want, like, what are the things that I really want out of this business? Do I want employees? What do they do? And so then I spent a lot of time with that, focusing on the mission and purpose of the company, because I think that's why the blog really, while it was working, it wasn't like kind of exploding. It wasn't getting any PR. It wasn't like something for us to even talk about on a podcast. Was because it didn't have any soul. It didn't have, like any panache. So I worked on that too. So I worked on myself and what I wanted, and I worked on the business as a whole. Like what was really the purpose? Why should people care? And what's ironic, Daniel, is I taught this stuff in my class, when I would give workshops, I would say like, well, who cares about your tours? Like, who cares? Why would they want to come to your Facebook page? I told people this all the time. So it was definitely like the teacher needs to teaches what they need to teach, what they need to know.
Yeah.
I got that totally wrong, but you know what I mean. The teacher teaches what they need to know. Yeah, that's it. Anyway, so I had a bit of a life event that occurred right when I was working on that, which was my mom, who had had breast cancer for 6 years, passed away. And while that was, of course, not the most ideal thing in the world, it gave me the nugget of inspiration that I was looking for. In that it was really a lot of the lessons she had always taught me in her life philosophy that I was trying to demonstrate with this website, this blog. So, and I had what I wanted. I had kind of this epiphany. I'm getting clear on why people should care. So then I worked on a business plan and marketing plan that pulled those things together. And that was the real turning point, I think, because then I could, and I still take clients now, for example, but I do so because I'm in service. Want to help other people, but I always check in with my plan. Is this part, if is taking this client on board part of what I want to be doing? Is it part of our mission? So, sometimes I'll take a client on board because I want to help them and feature them in the other work that I do. So I'm going to
Okay.
help them along their path, and then I'm going to bring them over, tell other people about them. But otherwise, I'm really focused on my main job that I like a lot now instead. And I have people that help me, and they all work a little bit on the side. It's not, I don't like have a big staff of newsroom reporters, off in the corner behind the camera here. They're off in their homes relaxing. So I kind of laugh like, oh, I really just, figured out what I wanted. That's not true. That was over 2 years ago. So I figured out what I wanted, it took a long time to figure out how to make that happen. And you have to do a lot of things that don't work because you don't know until you try. So I don't mean to sound fluffy on that. Oh, just decide what you want and maybe, it'll appear. You have to like really hustle and go out there and find stuff that works.
Okay, okay. Yeah, these are some really, really good points you mentioned there. Now, in terms of the clients, I'm interested to hear what's the main difference between the clients that you used to work with, the very non-ideal clients, and the clients you work with now, and why do you think you're attracting different clients now?
Mm, good question. Well, I accept a client. I do not just someone shows up and if they have money, I take them. That's a big difference. It's a big difference in my mindset. So when I'm meeting with a client to decide if I can help them, I'm also, it's like a two-way interview. So it's not just are they trying to see if I have the skills that they need, right? It's also do I think they're a good fit? So I will turn away a client if I technically have what they need, but I don't think we're going to work well together. So
Okay.
that's a pretty big difference. That's a pretty big difference. That means you have to walk away from money. So
Yeah,
that's a big difference.
that
It
is,
also
yeah.
means it also means sometimes this has happened very often, but taking on a client who you have to kind of work around their budget. So say, okay, well, what you really want is $5,000 a month, but for three, here's how I would prioritize. So you have to kind of be okay with that. That's being flexible, but you're flexible for the people that you really want to be in service to, and the people that you're doing good work. I really like to help you. So
Yeah.
that's the big difference I think in the mindset. And so what's the result? Is I work with less clients because I don't have the time and the bandwidth, and I want to really show up for them and my own work. But I also, um, they stick around for a long time. They're always coming back, and it seems like magic. Like they leave and someone else appears. It's just like magic.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so
So
that's the big difference. Is really the mindset and who they are.
okay, okay. So what is the structural difference in your business when you created a job for yourself compared to now? So how different does the structure of the business look like? And also how different is the work that you do in your business?
Mm. Well, before it was me, and if I didn't get up and do the work, nothing happened, and the clients were all were waiting on me. So it really was just, it was like, a freelancing gig, I guess. There was no business. It was just show up, do something, and get paid. And now we really it's a whole different beast. I like it Plum Deluxe as a platform. When I have a business conversation, I say Plum Deluxe as a platform. And so all of these things kind of sit on top of it or hang off of it. I'm not sure which way you look at it, but so I'm kind of responsible now for how all the things fit onto the platform and what comes on and is it performing. So I'm really the CEO now. What did we say earlier? The founder and creator. So it's kind of fun. That's the great part about being in charge. You can change your title. You can pick whatever you want. I encourage creativity, but I go with founder and creator because it's kind of like in an industry. So that's my role, is like how those things all fit together. And then of course, because I'm a good technician, I hop in and do things. So I write content. I will work with the clients. I will do, sales and marketing pieces. This is PR, I guess. So, I do the things. But then it's not like entirely reliant on me to execute everything for it to happen. So, for example, we sell tea. We sell loose leaf tea as our like only like physical product. And if I wanted to go on vacation, I would call up Carrie and say, "Hey, I'm going on vacation. I need you to pack any tea orders that come in. Here's the key to the house. Like where the tea is." So it's much different because it's really like, and in my mind, it's something I'm working on something that would outlive me. That's the main difference.
Okay, okay. So, and what are the key, I mean, revenue drivers for your business now, and how are they different from before, like when you basically were a freelancer?
Well, freelancer, it was hourly, get paid, goodbye. And now we really try to diversify because we don't know what's going to be like our big hit from the long term. So we started with sponsorships. So because it's all online, we have a kind of it's basically like an online magazine, I guess. I didn't want to do banner ads because I wanted control over the content and who appeared. So no banner ads. So we started with we call them sponsorships or partnerships, and that's a big driver of the revenue because that's what we've done for so long, and we have some good relationships. And that's just where someone say sponsors a recipe series, so and then your ingredient appears in the recipe, or a travel piece and it's a destination is sponsoring it, or a hotel chain, so their name kind of appears as like, this is brought to you by kind of thing. But we spend a lot of time making that content even better than anything else, so it's people feel really good about it. And we actually, our sponsored pieces are some of our most popular because we spend so much time in making them really interesting. But that's the main piece. Following on with that is events. So we do make a little bit of money on events. We've just started that this year, and we haven't had that many. It's just been kind of a slow process. If you're going to go into the events world, you're going to need a lot of coffee and prepared for stress. It's a hard business. People told me that, but I really didn't believe it until I had an event. But we're trying to work on that because I feel like we're really building a community on top of that platform, and for people to meet in person is important to me. And then we have tea. That's we wanted to create a like physical product, and that felt like an easy win. We could really be creative, and it ties into our mission and our um, the things that we talk about. You can take tea on a road trip. You can tea at a dinner party, that kind of thing. Those are kind of the main ones: events, sponsorships, tea, and then we do take clients. And a lot of times there's fold over, so people will hire us for like a custom tea blend for an event, and then they'll find out about what we do, and they'll say, "Oh, can you come in for consultation?" Or, "We'd like to purchase a sponsorship," or, can we be featured at your events?" So there's some crossover between those now because we really attract some great clients. So that's kind of cool.
Okay, okay, great. So what is what or how does your life and the way you spend your time privately and in your business, I mean in your business you already mentioned it, but how different is your life from when you basically had the freelance gig to when you are the CEO of the actual business now?
It's a lot less stressful,
Hmm.
and I have a lot more time to focus on the big picture things. I have to constantly figure out what's next. I have to figure out what's next, what's working and what needs to be changed, and what do we need to try new. I have decisions over all the like products, like what are we going to do with products, um, what sponsors are we going to take? What are we not going to take? What clients are we going to take and not take? But my time is like 70% future and then 30%, delivering on what we have right now, as
Okay.
opposed to before it was, I don't know, 99%
Yeah.
client and then 1% billing and hoping, praying and hoping that another client appears after that one.
Okay. Okay. So it's a lot less. Your time is spent on lot less commitments, so it's a lot more free. You get a lot more time to spend on the strategic work, the creative work, instead of the operational and the delivery work, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a good fit for me because I'm good at both.
Mm-hmm.
I more enjoy the strategic work, but I'm also good at the technician piece, the doing the work, and I like it because I feel accomplished. I think most of us, when we do good work, we feel good afterwards because it's like, like I did that off my list. So I like having the mix. So I have it. That's how I set it up that way. I'm sure I could find people to do everything for me and I could just lay around all day and dream, but then I would be bored and that's not what I want. But,
Okay.
if that's what you want, you can have it. Like, great. Like, you can do that.
Yeah.
So it goes back to that big question like, what is it exactly that you want out of it?
Exactly. Okay. Good. 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 So, what are the key things that you have changed in basically your business that made this possible for you? Because I mean, you cannot just go from having a freelance gig to spending 70% on the strategic, big picture, creative work and change nothing, right? So there's going
Yeah.
to be a few changes in the business. So, what were these changes?
Brand. I think your brand is crucial because it's how you show up in the world, and especially for Plum Deluxe, a potential sponsor or an attendee to an event or someone who's purchasing a tea product will see our brand before they meet us. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. Even if you're a consultant, your clients are looking at you on the web before they find you. If you're, a pastry shop, no matter what you are, people are finding out about you beforehand. So branding, the name, the colors, the words and phrases that you use, the photography that you choose that represent you, is really crucial to set the first foot forward. It's like, on the right foot. So I think that we upped our game 4,000,000% on that. That's a big difference. I think that was the most critical difference. So when we show up in the world on the line,
So
people really pay attention.
when you talk
They
about
stop.
when you talk about the brand, are you talking about so your potential clients see not just you as the freelancer, but actually see it as a business?
Yes.
Okay.
And people know that I'm at the heart of it and they really appreciate that. It's like a family owned company. But when people find out about us, they see like making moments that matter. That's our tagline. And they like stop. I tell people like I go to a networking event and I say, oh, I run a website called Plum Deluxe that helps you create moments that matter. And people stop every time. Like it's like this trigger word. So it's so crucial to have those pieces of your brand that people will stop and listen to. Um, it's how we get people to come to our events. It's how we get people to sign up for our email list, which is it's what we're selling to our sponsors is access to these people. So we couldn't have done that without doing a total do-over on a great branding and having a strong message. And the message is the hardest part. It's taken me forever to figure out the message, but it's really, really crucial for you, no matter if you're a plumber, if you're running an online magazine, if you're going to have a cafe, that it's really clear in one little short word, phrase, sentence what people are going to get from you.
Yeah.
So crucial. So crucial.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, this is great. So, in terms of brand, so I just want to get a little bit more deeper on that because I think that's really important, and I think there's an aspect of the brand that is so important when people change from going from a practice to a business because
Hmm.
um, Usually when people are in practice, or when they are practice, when they are consultants and coaches, they work on a project that's, they may be two projects or three projects for 6 months, and then after the 6 months, the clients, they're gone, and then they're there with zero clients for 3 months, and it's like, this is a horrible experience, and I know how that feels. I've done
Especially if you have a
that.
mortgage.
Exactly, exactly. Even if you don't have money problems, it still feels horrible to not have clients for 3 months and then having to go out there trying to sell to people. So
Mhm,
it's just so
mhm.
much more comfortable and just so much more. Um, it just it just gives so much more security if you have a brand out there that works for you, even if you don't work. So I think that's another important aspect of the branding piece, right?
I agree. I agree. I think it sets you apart. I think no matter what you do, if even if you're a product or a service, if you have a brand that you're really proud of that represents you, it makes it so much easier to sell you and what you
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
You've done that
exactly.
work. There's a piece of that process of becoming a brand that is hard work that changes you, that makes you really attuned with what you represent, how you show up in the world, what are your gifts that you give people. Yeah. So I think it's
Exactly.
important. I think it's
Exactly.
important.
Okay. Wow. So that was really great. I just loved how you described the way you went from the job to the business and how everything basically changed because there's a lot of things, a lot of good things that come with it. So I really appreciate your story. So what is like your key tip, one of the key tips or the key tip that you would recommend to somebody who is currently overwhelmed by their client work, by all the work that they have to do, all their commitments and everything, struggling to focus on things, struggling with working in the business only and not on the business. What is your key tip, like your most important tip for an entrepreneur, a business owner like that?
Mm. I would get out a piece of paper, big piece of paper, and I would draw a line down the middle. And on the one side, I would start making a list of the things that make you unhappy or that you don't want anymore. On the other side, I want you to make a list of the things that you don't have and you want, and that could be sleep,
Yeah,
money. Want to be an Oprah. Like dream big. Make a list on the right of the things that you want and that or that you don't have. That you want or you don't have, and then look at that list for a little bit. Put it above your desk because I think actually in my experience, I think if you do that, you will see that you can remove things off of the don't wants pretty easily. Some of them maybe not. I'm realistic. I know that not everything is just delete it, but I think you can clear a little space, and that will make room for you to start getting over to the other side.
that's awesome. Wow.
So that's
That's powerful. It's very simple and powerful. I'm obsessed with small things that have a big impact, and I believe that's one of them. That's one
yeah,
of
I
these
think so
small
too.
things because it takes 10 minutes, 15 minutes to do that, but it can create a huge impact in your mindset on how you look at things and how you think about things, and then that's basically what creates the change in the business. So really appreciate that input. Thank you so much.
You're
So
welcome.
with that note, I'd like to finish the interview. It was awesome to have you here, Andy. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Any last words? Where can people find you?
Last words, people can find me. Well, you can find me at plumdeluxe.com. It's plum, Plum, deluxe with an E.com. And yeah, and the social media links are there if you want to, drop me a note, feel free. Final words. I would say, I just want to say that, you know, I think more and more people are going out on their own and more people are struggling with it. And so what I want to tell you is that if you're working on your own in a business, you have a brand that you're starting, that's awesome. But I don't want you to forget that you deserve to have whatever you want. You deserve to have the brand, the business that you really want. So don't be afraid to go for that. Don't make decisions out of fear. Make decisions that are brave and make decisions that will get you there. So don't forget, look ahead, look forward. What is it that you really want and aim for that. And sometimes you'll have to do things along the way that maybe are not ideal, but that's okay. As long as you know where you're headed and you're not making decisions out of fear, you'll be good.
Awesome. Great. Andy, thank you so much. So we're going to finish up with that. It was really awesome having you here, and hope to talk to you in another occasion. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Andy.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.